I don't think it's good there. Let's brighten that a little bit. Brighter. Good. There we go. All right. Okay. Time to go.
All right. Good evening, Uniters, and welcome to another UIC Liberty TV. My name is Winston Wright. I'm your host this evening. And forgive me if I'm not as fluent as our previous host. He did a great job. And our president, as usual, is great coming on. But I'm here to share with Uniters all over the world. Good evening to everyone on this Sunday evening, wherever you're joining us from. I want to say a very special welcome to all our regular Uniters who always join us. This evening, we'll be talking justice. Yes, the very elusive justice, at least when it seems to come to the UIC and our president. Justice seems to be elusive. So we'll be talking about justice this evening because it is important, as we have always said, liberty equals justice. Because if you're truly free, then it means that the society is just, and if the society is just, it means that you are free. So we'll be talking about justice and how it prevails in Jamaica, what masquerades as justice. We see independence, or the lie of independence, as the lie that keeps on giving, and it gives rise to the injustice that we see happening. Our president has been waiting for 4+ years to have his day in court. He has finally gotten in front of the judges, and now he's waiting a year and plus, waiting for a ruling that is not coming. And as a uniter, as a citizen of this country, as a taxpaying citizen, I'm very livid. And I'm hoping you are too. I'm hoping you want to see true justice, because justice has to appear to be done as well as be done. And we'll be joined by the president himself, who will share with us on the trials that he, no pun intended, that he has been facing, not being able to optimize his professional life because of the restrictions surrounding what has been happening when he stood up for us on that very fateful day, and he was singled out to make sure that we are silenced, that Jamaicans don't have what is considered the testicular fortitude to stand up to this tyrannical system that we live in. Now, allow me to invite our president on. He will be joining us shortly on stage. We'll ask him a few questions and outline that big lie that they've been telling us when they say Jamaica is just. Now, we all know that the UIC is big on the separation of powers. We believe that the state, the judiciary, the Senate, the Houses of Representatives should be separate, totally separate. There should be clear demarcation. And that is one of the avenues through which we will eliminate corruption. So that we're very big on. And you can check our website to see the details around that. We have a very concrete manifesto, one that we consider a very deep and passionate pledge to the people, and one that we abide by. So I'm hoping to have the president on shortly, and we will look at all of these things and more in our talk on justice tonight. So yes, and to chop the line again, that is the thing that we need to talk about. And we have with us our president, Mr. Joseph Patterson. Good evening, Sir President. How are you? All right, so your audio is off right now. Let me give you a chance to fix that.
Good evening, Mr. Wright. Thank you for having me. Did I come on too soon? Or
No. I was waiting for you.
Oh, you're ready for me? Okay. In a little while, I'm going to have one of our long-standing members join me as well, Mr. Dermot Sutherland. He's going to come on shortly. But I'm happy to be here tonight to talk about what's happening in our country. I noticed the topic says Andrew chopped the line again.
Yes.
Which indicates that somehow he has gotten preferential treatment again over the Jamaican people, and his matters are considered more important than the matters of the Jamaican people. But let me put in context again the dateline that we're working with. So I was arrested on September 22nd, 2021, and I was arrested and charged and held without bail, and my wife, with the help of others, had to fight for my release, because those who arrested me would have preferred if I remained in jail until my first trial date. They also tried to compound the matter by not only arresting me for the march that we led on September 22nd in Kingston, they tacked onto it charges for the Manchester Walk. As you know, Mr. Wright, you led our first march in Heroes Circle in downtown Kingston on, I think it was August 6th or August 6th, I believe, in 2021. And then we subsequently had a number of other marches. One of them was in Manchester. We started in Kingston with you leading that march. And then we had, I think, Devon Thompson and Kadeem Nelson leading the march in Portmore. And then we had a march in Spanish Town led by Miss Mackenzie Williams. And after that, we had a march in Maypen. And then we had a march in Mandeville. Now in Mandeville, we actually got permission, meaning we never pre-asked for it, but when the police came out, they actually spoke with us and they saw that we were organized and orderly and that we had no intention of doing anything that would disrupt people's lives or damage anybody's property. So the police actually said, yeah, man, you're good, you're free to go. Nevertheless, they had the police go and amend the records and then charge me for a march in Mandeville as well. I'm surprised they didn't charge me also for Maypen and Spanish Town and Portmore and for the one in Kingston prior. In any event, the point I'm making is that you could see that they're weaponizing the system and trying to use it against their political opponent in the first instance. Now, the moment they charged me, we had our lawyers go to court and counter sue, so to speak, and say, no. You violated our rights, our natural rights, our civil rights, and even constitutional rights. And so our lawyer made a prepared arguments for that, but the Supreme Court would not hear the matter, in a quick timeline. They simply left us hanging, and because of that, we had to keep going to court, the lower courts in Halfway Tree Court and the Manchester Court for the Manchester matter. So we would be consistently going to court every month or so, more than 30 times. So this is through the entire year, from 2021 September all the way until we finally got an audience with the Supreme Court, the Constitutional Court, in 2024. They then promised to give us a verdict on July 31st, 2024, and we've been waiting ever since. So that is the background there that we have to be dealing with. So back to you, Mr. Wright.
Thank you for that detailed timeline. So let me just ask you a few questions to enrich our audience so they can understand exactly what is happening.
Yes.
From a legal perspective.
Yes.
Is how many persons were firstly charged and why for in the instance in Kingston?
Right. So they arrested myself and three other young persons. They also arrested another gentleman, an elderly gentleman, who they subsequently released. I don't know what was the context for his release because he never spoke to us. My understanding is that he gave them the information that they needed that allowed them to concentrate their efforts on me. And then they had myself and these three young persons, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Harris, and Miss Thompson. So they captured those 3 young people with me as well. And they're all together now. We filed together. The UIC made sure that we assisted all of those persons. And so they're all bunched together in a singular case with me on the matter of their rights being abused by the government. And so while they may face their individual case at the lower courts, which we do together as well, because the UIC, thanks to our donors who contributed to our legal defense fund, we were able to take care of all of the persons that were impacted. So they're all together with me in court in Kingston, while I'm on my own in Manchester.
Understood. You're not on your own, Mr. President. Rest assured. In terms of the ramification, because I've always said to our audience that this case is a precedent-setting case, and they may not believe me. So, can you share with us why it is so?
Oh yeah, it's a big case, because what happened is this is actually challenging the Prime Minister's authority to do what he did during that period of our history. It was billed as a pandemic, and the Prime Minister and the government, including the opposition, were responding to this pandemic. Now, there are some people who say that because it's a pandemic, anything should go. But the truth is, it doesn't work that way. There are rules and regulations for how a government is supposed to deal with managing any emergencies while protecting the human rights of the citizens. Now, the Prime Minister and team violated a number of our human rights in the process of him dealing with this threat to our society. And, whenever you have a pandemic or anything like that, it's very important that you carefully manage it because you want to protect the lives and livelihoods of people. But you also want to make sure you're respecting due process and you're respecting the rights of the citizens. When this all started, the UIC gave the Prime Minister, through the public, very clear standards by which, if he followed them, he would not be in any constitutional issues, because it ensured an inclusive process, a transparent process, and a process that would respect the human rights of the citizens. So should the Prime Minister lose this case, which he's going to lose, because we presented a very, very strong argument to the point where we see that the court is even delaying in bringing the verdict. And it's now been since June, and they have delayed bringing a verdict to us because no doubt it is going to show that the Prime Minister violated our rights. Now, that's not just Joseph Patterson's rights. It's not just the 3 persons that were arrested with me. It is all Jamaicans who have been violated by the government. So when the Prime Minister loses this case, it is a major implication for the entire country and for all Jamaicans. And I'm sure he doesn't want this to be heard before the next election. He has lost a number of cases already at the Constitutional Court and otherwise. We saw where he tried to abuse his power in the appointment or temporary appointment of the Chief Justice. We saw where he tried to abuse his power when he had senators signed undated resignation letters so that he could control them, so that if they ever went against his wishes, he could automatically kick them out of the Senate. We saw where he tried to pass a NIDS bill that would have fully violated the rights of the Jamaican people. And again, the courts struck that down, and he was forced to go back to the drawing table. And now he has found a more tricky way to violate the Jamaican people by forcing them or bribing them to take the NIDS, but not directly. So, for example, he's offering people $20,000 provided they have their NIDS identification. And during the pandemic, they also, used employers to threaten people with the loss of their jobs if they did not take the job. So we have a Prime Minister and a leadership that has consistently believed in the idea of undermining the rights and freedoms of our citizens. And the UIC will just not stand for it. And so they want to silence me because they believe if they silence me, they will silence the movement. They will kill the movement. And it is my hope and prayer that the UIC will rise above that and make sure that no matter what happens, the principles and values of the UIC as a movement stands firmly on the side of protecting the life, liberty, and property rights of every Jamaican equally.
Thank you, Mr. President. And the matter of silence in the UIC, So there's an extraordinary delay in, firstly, your case going before the Constitutional Court. Was there a reason? And as a matter of fact, let me preface it by saying the PM was able to get his matter before the Constitutional Court the Supreme Court in 61 days, and some 20 days later, 25 days later, was able to get the ruling he was assured. Now that is a clear preference, and this now is in context to you waiting some 1,000 and almost 30 days.
Yeah, yes. I mean, well over 1,000 days. I mean, think about it, right? The Prime Minister is saying that his constitutional rights were breached by the Integrity Commission.
And just to be clear, while he is the Prime Minister of the country, this is about him and his actions as an individual.
Absolutely.
Not about a legal matter affecting the country, but affecting him as an individual.
So his issue is actually less than mine. Because this is a personal matter where, in his filings with the Integrity Commission, there are questions. And there are also questions about the manner in which the Integrity Commission may or may not have dealt with his file. And so he is seeking to question that, which is fine, and that's his right. But he was able to go to court and say, I have an issue with how this thing is going. And within 61 days, you say, he was given a hearing. I was not given a hearing so I went from September 2021 to 22 to 23 to 24. So I did not get a hearing from the Supreme Court after more than 3 years. I had to wait to get a hearing from the Supreme Court. And then after getting a hearing from them, they told us that we would now get a verdict coming out of that hearing, coming out of that trial session. We would now get a verdict by July 31st. Today is December 8th. So they promised us July 31st, and now it's December 8th. And they didn't even have the courtesy of telling us why they have delayed giving us a verdict. We have, through my lawyer, we have contacted them, and they're mum on the issue. They have no rationale, no reason why they have delayed giving us a verdict. I tell you this. When we had the trial,
can I ask you to hold your thought right here, Mr. President?
Yes.
So your lawyers have reached out to the Supreme Court, and they have no feedback as to why you have not gotten your hearing your ruling as yet. Yes. All right. Well, the UIC, through me, has reached out to the Supreme Court over the past 3 weeks. For the first 2+ weeks, their phones rang without an answer for well over an hour each day. A lot earlier today Sunday, so earlier mid last week, we got through to the Supreme Court on 2 occasions. The first occasion when I introduced myself on behalf of the UIC and asked the receptionist who answered about your case, abruptly she asked me to repeat, and abruptly the phone went dead. And for the rest of the day, I could not get back through to their office. The following day, I decided to trick the system, so to speak. Don't follow Andrew's example and chop the line. So I called the wrong extension and then asked to be transferred to the right extension. So I got somebody then and asked to be transferred to the right extension. And the person said, oh, I can't transfer you because I don't know where to transfer you. I said, how about looking in the internal directory and see the extension for that place and transfer me? He said, no, they don't have an internal directory. Right? They have a switchboard, but no internal directory. I find that incredible. But it is possible because our justice system has been failing over the years. Okay, so I said, all right, is there an operational number you can give me to call? She asked me to hold, and after a lengthy hold, she came back and said, oh, by the way, the numbers are internal. I can't give those to you. I said, internal? So isn't that why you can give it to me? She said, oh, no, they are cell phones. So, of course, the call ended there. And it goes on. But the point I'm making is this. Your lawyer was able to get through and get nothing. We called and got nothing. Not an acknowledgement to the 2 letters the UIC sent to the Supreme Court, and not an acknowledgement of the multiple emails that we have sent, or any of the UIC supporters who have emailed have sent. Continue for me.
Yes. So, I mean, this is serious because they have it in their hands to decide the fate of the Jamaican people. And what they're saying is that the Prime Minister's case is worthy of the quickest possible resolution. And so they heard his case within 61 days and they've reached a verdict, as you said, within 25 days after that. So within 90 days, the Prime Minister was able to skip the line, jump ahead of everybody else, chop the line, jump ahead of the lady who has waited for 14 years, the old lady who has waited now for 14 years, from 70 to 84 years old. She has waited for her case to be heard. It's not heard yet. She's been given a promise that it's going to be heard. And here I am. Of course, her case is very personal. It doesn't affect, all Jamaicans in the general sense, even though it really affects every justice case affects all Jamaicans, because injustice for one is injustice for all. It's just that those who face it feel it most immediately. Like I feel it, because every month when I have to go to the court, drive from St. Elizabeth here, it's a 3-hour trip one way, 6 hours each time, plus gas and wear and tear on the vehicle, plus loss of income. So they're really hoping to break me, and they're really trying to break the UIC by lengthening this. So the Supreme Court seems to be playing in accordance with the Prime Minister's wishes to punish, to use the system without reaching a guilty verdict. They have already punished me, and they have punished all of us who were arrested with having to find time out of our daily lives to go to court over and over, waiting for them to hear us. And then finally, we're now waiting for a verdict. And while we're waiting for a verdict, we still have to go back to the lower courts every time. We have to go back each time for what is called a new mentioned date. So you go there, waste a day, get a new date, go back again, waste the day, get another date. And this is how they're punishing. So this is injustice, not just to me, but to any Jamaican who is faced with this kind of system where the Prime Minister can just jump the queue. The big man, the big man can always jump the queue in Jamaica. That's why they don't care about fixing the systems in Jamaica. Because while we have to go to the tax office, the ordinary Jamaican must go to the tax office, for example, and stand up in long lines in the sun or rain come wet way and wait until we are let in. The big man can just pay somebody and jump the line. So the Prime Minister is exhibiting to the Jamaican people the kind of system he likes, the system that gives preferential treatments to some over others. And so they're using this system. They're using the system to punish us so that we learn our place. What is our place? Our place is not to question them. This is what the police said when we were doing the march. When they knew that we were going out on September 22nd, they put out a broadcast statement. And the police says, no permission was sought and no permission would be given. In other words, they're saying, we don't care what you, the Jamaican people, think. Whether or not you like what the Prime Minister is doing, we are determined to silence you, because even if you request a permit, we're going to deny it, because we have that power to deny you. They didn't know how many people were going to be in the march. They had rules about how many people. For example, 1 second, Mr. Wright, we could have had a march where we had only no more than 6 persons in a cluster as they wanted us to do, and we could have been separated by space and whatever. But the police made it clear, no permission would be given, even if we asked and none was given. So they were mandated by their overlords to come and arrest me and others, and then to punish us through the police system and then through the justice system, to make sure we learn, say, we must never, never object to whatever they want to do to us.
Now, you spoke about the police and bias. Was it about the same time that the police themselves had a protest? And don't make it worse, they had a protest in front of what is considered in national security term a scheduled building, meaning the protected building where there is no protest or gathering.
Yes. What that means for people who are listening, there are scheduled buildings. Parliament is one of them. The Supreme Court is another one, meaning no protest is allowed within a certain distance of the building. So you can't go within that space. The police broke that law when they marched because they felt that the court was not dealing with their case adequately and they wanted justice. So the police broke the law and marched on a scheduled building. And we have not heard of one person being arrested for doing so. Not one police officer was arrested for doing so.
Or reprimanded.
But we, the UIC, we never marched on Parliament. We marched towards Parliament. We marched around the vicinity of Parliament. None of us ever went inside the zone that is considered breaching the space of Parliament. But they still pursued their objective here of doing this.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. That adds a lot of clarity. It shows the bias as well as the control and the premeditation in what has happened to you. So now, let me ask you to speak to the persons who are saying, oh, it was a pandemic, so you should expect restrictions. And let me point out, there were several countries throughout the world that did not follow this model, did not follow this principle of violating the constitutional rights of people, and countries that tried. Also, you had countries that tried, and their citizens said, no, we have a constitution that guarantees that you treat us in this way. And the government had to respect that. So I would love to, So I would love to have you back to share with us what does it mean to the ordinary man to have your government behaving that way.
I mean, well, clearly, what it means to the ordinary man and woman in Jamaica is that the government of today is behaving like a colonial entity, where the people are very subjugated. We have seen over and over that the Prime Minister and team wants to behave this way. They want to have a dictatorial, draconian way. When I say so, you just do it. And it's not about, looking out for how do you respect the rights of citizens and so on. But I want to pause briefly to welcome on camera with me Mr. Dermot Sutherland, one of the longest and strongest serving members of the UIC. Mr. Sutherland, how are you doing, sir?
Fine, thanks.
Yes.
Welcome, Mr. Sutherland.
Right. I am very grateful to be here today. The God giving me this privilege of coming back to my land of birth and being able to share with the UIC. I have to say the sadness and crucifixion of the people of Jamaica. And I hope that we can all stand firmly together and understand and realize the advantages that are being taken of Jamaicans. I'm living abroad, but I suffer the consequences because 64 years ago, I leave to England. And I was told that I'm going to mother country. And my mother died, and I still didn't meet her. She didn't invite me to her house, which is Buckingham Palace. And I'm still suffering that consequence now because I was told that Jamaica got independence in 1962. There's no independence. I'm still not independent. I have nothing to prove. I drove on the streets. I drove on the highway towards Williamsfield. And what I see there frightens me because I remember as a youngster, my parents always said to me, don't hang your basket higher than you can reach it. And the average Jamaican will understand it, or the old Jamaicans will understand those wordings of our grandparents. Because if you have a road that you cannot pay for, then certainly it's the builder's own. And the builders are not Jamaicans. The builders are from a foreign country. And this is some of the things that I'd love the real Jamaican in their own way stand up and realize that they're in a land that is not their own anymore.
We're gradually losing it. Yeah. And so one second, Mr. Wright, before you go, there's a person here who made a very important point on the live. I think it's Crystal G. And Crystal G says that, but I hear a MP, and I heard it too. I hear a MP telling demonstrators that they can protest as long as they don't block the road, and the police agreed. Now, to be honest with you, that is not the law. But here was an MP. Here were people breaking the law by demonstrating in a way that was actually boisterous. The UIC was extremely organized. Whatever we do is well organized, and it's not boisterous. and is not defacing public property or damaging public property or private property. But here I saw the news item where the gentleman, the MP is on TV and the police is on TV telling the protesters they can protest even though they have no permission to protest, which is what the law requires, as long as they don't block the road. And I hear the police officer saying, you know, we don't want to have to arrest anybody and whatever and whatever. And that's what was going on. Now, here's what they've done in this colonial law. They put a clause in it that says the police has discretion. Now, this is very corrupt, because what it means, the police can see me and you, Mr. Wright, breaking the same law, and they can choose which of us they're going to arrest and charge for breaking the. They see both of us, you know, the two of us break the law, so to speak, but they can select not to charge you, but to charge me. And that is acceptable under the colonial laws that we have today. That is wrong. It is unfair. It is discriminatory. And the Prime Minister, therefore, is getting the benefit of all that kind of discrimination, because he will get his case attended to in less than 90 days, while my case continues now for well over 1,000 days.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, they did show that bias in your case and several others, because the police and several other groups who protested during that period, they didn't face the same issues that you faced. So just to make that clear to other persons. And just to ask a question of Mr. Sutherland that is off topic. Do you remember why there are several places, for example, in Clarendon, in Westmoreland, I think somewhere in St. Mary? Viewers can correct me. There are several places in Jamaica called Toll Gate. Do you remember why they were called Toll Gate?
No, because in my young years in Jamaica, I thought I was fairly well educated, but I was not, because I was not given the right to understand the history of Jamaica, because as a youngster, most were hidden from us. It wasn't until I go to England where I see children are not spanked in school, children are not punished for most misbehaving attitude there. And when we got there, we got a job, not as a Jamaican or not as a human being, but as a black man. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be addressed as black man, because there's nowhere in the Bible I saw that statement. So, you know, opening my eyes, coming back to my country 64 years after, it saddens me. And the language that will be officially spoken in years to come with the management of Jamaica now, the Jamaicans won't be able to speak it. So we have to open our eyes and give our support, because Mr. Patterson is almost half my age, and he's the one who showed me, or told me, that Jamaica is not mine anymore, without using those words. But his explanation of what is happening here and what he's hoping to do, I do, and I hope that Jamaicans will take him seriously and give him their support to own a country again. My passport tells me that I'm a Jamaican by birth, and I'm not a Jamaican at this moment officially by the system of Jamaica. So I'm asking everyone who's listening to this program at this moment to take those words serious and give Mr. Patterson his support. I didn't come here today to visit Jamaica. I came to know Mr. Patterson and to be introduced to the UIC, which I'm hoping in the near future will control the leadership of Jamaica. So I'm grateful to be here and to share these words with you both and those who are listening.
All right.
Thank you,
Mr. Sutherland, and we appreciate your visit. I'm sure the President does, and thank you for being on Liberty TV with us. And I'm sure you'll be sharing in the answers that we will now provide. We'll take some comments from those of our viewers on YouTube and across the other social media platform. I see Craig McKenzie asking, what is the worst case scenario if a ruling comes in? He said verdict, but I think it's a ruling. If the ruling comes in that is not favorable. Mr. President?
Well, if they should rule that the Prime Minister did nothing wrong, and therefore, you know, we ought to face the lower courts. So we'll now go to trial in the lower courts. So we're asking for the Constitutional Court to say that his behaviors were unconstitutional. If we win, obviously it demolishes the case at the lower courts. If we lose, then at the lower courts, I'll be tried in Manchester for the crime they say I've committed, and then I'll be tried in Kingston. So I'll have two cases to go back to. We'll then have to go through that, the trial period, and then getting a verdict coming down from that. If the verdict is guilty at the lower levels, then there is the consequence of fines and jail time, or fines or jail time for that.
Would you be appealing if the ruling is not favorable and the verdicts that would come from these trials was not favorable?
So, well, if the ruling is not favorable, I'm hoping that we'll have the support of the citizens to make an appeal to the Privy Council. Of course, that's not a very inexpensive matter. We'd have to find some serious cash for that. And that's one of the ways that they stifle the Jamaican people, right? They know that most people will not be able to afford, appeal. If you notice, normally it's only some people who get to appeal their cases and get successful outcomes of that. So we will then move to appealing to the Privy Council if we're not successful at the Supreme Court level, and we'll, then have to go through that process, however long that may take.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me. I don't know if I should ask this question. All right, so let's look at this scenario now, where the matter is favorable, and the verdicts are the charges are vacated in the lower courts. What will your follow-up action be for your pain and suffering?
Well, that's a serious matter that our lawyer would be dealing with. Basically, I don't want to prejudice that too much, but there will be some serious consequences. Suits that can be laid against the government, and restitution that may be necessary from the government, and not just to me, but for all Jamaicans who have been similarly impacted by the misdeeds of the government.
Right, and we can reference the traffic ticket issue, where the fines were properly gazetted, and one smart person knew that and challenged their fine, and by virtue of the abuse that had taken place of motorists, the government was required to make restitution, and they were telling motorists that those of you who have paid these fines will need to present your receipt from the tax office to claim for that money's back. However, they had a wider claim against the government. But
yes.
My point is that those unfair positions, as I see them, if they impose any such conditions on you, are you and the UIC and your legal team prepared to handle that?
Yeah, anything that they bring at us, we're prepared to handle it. I mean, the key thing is whether or not we have the support of the people. The last time, the people supported us tremendously in helping to fund the first round of the legal system. We, of course, over time have run out of money for that, but I'm hoping that we will have the support of the people again to help finance our legal position.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, I see persons in here saying, the UIC should get a chance at government, etc. I just point out that the UIC does deserve a chance at government, and let me share a position with all uniters. The UIC's ultimate aim is to have control of the government, and a vote for the UIC to make the UIC government, as in electing us as the majority in Parliament, is a vote for us to enact our manifesto, which is to create a real republic. Not a fake one, but a real republic. A republic that protects the right of all citizens equally, a right to life, liberty, and property equally. All right? Tell the government what it can do and what it cannot do on your behalf. Now, to do that is a staged process that you have been working on since 2019, Mr. President. Well, let me ask you this question. If the UIC had candidates that got elected in the next election cycle coming up, and without you giving away too much, how would you use that to influence decision making in the halls of government in Jamaica?
There are really two ways. The first way, which I'm thinking might very well happen, is in the next election, we're going to likely have what you call a minority government, meaning that the two colonial parties will have, a number of seats, but none of them will have an outright majority to run the country. Should the UIC win 1 to 5 to 10 seats, right? This would then give the UIC the balance of power, meaning both of those parties would have to come to us and seek our support in order for them to form the government. They call it a hung parliament, right? So once they come to us to help them find create a government, we would then be able to demand certain things be addressed in terms of law and in terms of budget. And so we'll begin to influence the process through there. But let's say that's not the case, and one of the two have an outright majority, and we and the other party share some seats in the parliament. The UIC will now have a full right to ask questions in parliament, and a full right to get the microphone at the end of each parliamentary session. We could not be overlooked anymore by mainstream media, because we will have a right and a place that they cannot ignore to be a part of the dialogue. And so now the Jamaican people will now hear more about what the UIC has to offer, and finally start to hear regularly what the UIC has to offer, and be given a chance to learn why this makes sense for them and for us all to embrace.
Thank you, Mr. President. And let me just remind persons listening and watching that you can just reach out to us at 876-293-0812 to ask your question live. If you do, after you've asked your question, we're going to ask you to hang up and go back to viewing and listen for your answer. Okay? So it's 876-293-0812. You can just give us a call if you wish to ask a question live on the broadcast. I thank you for that, Mr. President. So it's clear. So persons who see a UIC candidate in their constituency, who would like to see a change in government, who would like to see the influence and the decision-making starting this election cycle, all they have to do is support that UIC candidate. And by support, I don't mean saying, oh, we support that candidate, he's from the UIC, but actively getting involved, because the PSOJ is pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into the two colonial parties because they want them to stay in power. Who do they think we get our cement from for our infrastructure projects? Who do they think we get our asphalt from for infrastructure projects? And so on. So they want to make sure that they still maintain their lucrative government contracts, and that their friends who support them will get in power. Now, the UIC is not anti-business or anti-PSOJ. We're anti-colonialism and anti-control. The people should be respected, and the laws of the land should reflect that respect, not the control of the 1%. No, having said that, get involved, support that candidate by volunteering, helping that candidate bring their numbers to the polling station. And we're not in the position to are willing to give hundreds of millions of dollars to people to vote. We want to change the dynamics in Jamaica. We want you to truly vote because it matters. And if you're tired of being at the bottom, tired of asking for handout, tired of eking out a living on the margins of society, now is your time, because it will only get worse. Now, in terms of the referendum to come that they're touting that is coming soon, that fake republic that is coming, Mr. President, if it doesn't arrive before the UIC gets seats in parliament to influence the decision, meaning the day they decide to enact it with the UIC in parliament, how will you treat with this fraudulent constitution?
Well, we're not going to give away that strategy right now, but I can tell you that the UIC will be contesting this vigorously. As a matter of fact, we do expect that in an effort, there are two things here. One, I know that the Prime Minister really has no interest in Jamaica becoming a republic, nor does the opposition. They're just going.
He said it years before he decided to make Jamaica a republic.
Right. They don't want this, and so if you look at the approach they have taken, it's a very minimalist approach. Their goal is to, if the Jamaican people vote no, they're going to be happy, because no means we stay with the system that exists. If the Jamaican people vote yes, they're going to be happy because they would have voted for a fake republic and nothing of substance would have changed except the names and conventions, and also some bad new things would have been put in place, like a worse kind of Senate formation would have been put in place, and other things like that they would have engineered to make us worse off than we were before becoming a republic. So it's a win-win for them. So they're not interested in a real win of this vote. And if they do win, they're not losing anything there. But I noticed that someone asked a question in the chat area. I think it was Mr. McKenny. He asked, under UIC government, would the Privy Council be nullified? And you want to take that, Mr. Wright, or do you want me to respond?
Well, what I would say to Mr. McKenzie is this. The UIC strongly believe and will affirm that the people of Jamaica holds the right to their final appellate court and the decisions thereof. And the UIC government believes in empowering not only the people, but the jury system in the country to make sure that is a reality. So we don't need to marginalize the common man like yourself and I, where we can't get justice unless we spend hundreds of millions, like a famous entertainer, to go to the Privy Council, even though there were clear errors in the system. You will be able to get justice here in the land of your birth and living. So you won't need to go to the Privy Council. It will all happen here.
Can you imagine that a government of the last 62 years of so-called independence, and having prior to that 18 years of experience in running the country, the two colonial parties, they have not found a way to give the Jamaican people their own final appellate court, and they do not have the confidence even now in our own system of justice to confidently say that we can run. And I can see why. They all know that the current system that they have is a system that will always run afoul of the Jamaican people. And so it's hard for them to reach any conclusion on the matter, given what's happening to us here. Look at it. The Prime Minister has gotten his case in less than 90 days. And we, the Jamaican people, all of us were interested in this case because it's about our rights and freedom. And we're still waiting over 1,000 days. Why is the Chief Justice doing this? Why is Justice Brian Sykes sitting on the sidelines and doing nothing about such a matter? Is it that he is possibly somewhat compromised? Because I can hardly see, I'm sure Justice Sykes, I've heard him speak. He's not somebody who doesn't understand the importance of a case like this. In fact, the three judges who presided over the matter, they all, through the main judge, expressed how significant and important this case is and was. And it baffles me to think that three learned judges and the Chief Justice would allow such a travesty to exist and to continue, where a matter of national import is relegated to a minority case that they can afford to delay for years to hear the case and then delay for months in bringing forward a verdict which they said would really, by their actions, would be easier because they decided that they did not need 3 days of hearing. It was scheduled for 3 days of hearing. 3 days. Our lawyer made their full presentation on the first day of hearing. And the judges, after hearing our presentation for the first day, and we break in the middle of the day and came back and pack it all in, and then they heard the case of the government. And the 3 judges concluded that there is no need for this trial to go on for 3 days. It can all be wrapped up in the first and only day, and that they would have a verdict. It meant that they saw enough and heard enough to give them confidence that it's not a very difficult case to rule on, and they would expect between the time we met in June and July 31st to be able to give a verdict. And for some strange reason, that all changed over the course of that roughly 30 days. They have found serious difficulties, which we don't know about yet, to be able to bring forward a verdict. Simply declaring a verdict. There's nothing else. There's no scheduling required. It's just giving the verdict to the Jamaican people. They have not been able to do that for July, August, September, October, November, December. So what should have taken about less than 30 days or 30 days thereabouts has now gone on for about 6 months.
No, let me ask the Uniters and the Jamaican people watching. There's a Chief Justice and he is the highest ranking judge in a court and is usually the presiding member of the Supreme Court. So he's in charge. So let me ask the Jamaican people, will you sit and let the highest ranking judge that you're paying collect without doing anything? Other than favors, or what seem to be favors for the political elite, the connected few, because this 80-odd-year-old old lady, this senior citizen, has been waiting 14 years for her case to be mentioned, and he's now promising her a hearing, just a hearing. Okay? Not a speedy resolution, but a hearing. Of course, there are those judges that sat on the panel and heard the arguments in this case. All they need to do is either narrate to their secretary or get on their computer and type the judgment based on the case law that they should be so familiar with, and then present that as their ruling to the people. Should have taken less than 30 days, as the president indicated. That is a reasonable timeline, a reasonable expectation. But they have not sat down to do their job that we are paying them for. And are you satisfied with that? Have you been to traffic court and see how you and others that are considered lower class is treated? Have you ever been to civil court and seen how those who are considered second class, lower class, who don't have a high power attorney, that whether he sits in the Senate or is well connected to the political elite representing their interest, how they are treated? Is that how you want to continue? You're good because it's not you. The same knife will stick the hog, stick the goat. So rest assured that one day the system will treat you the same. Or would you rather an equitable system that treats everybody fairly? All we need is for the Chief Justice, I'll be right with you, Mr. President, all we need is for the Chief Justice to stand up, look at his charges and say, Justice, Joseph Patterson's case was argued in front of you. Can you explain to me the difficulties you're having in presenting a ruling based on current case laws and precedents? And if they say they don't have access to the law library to review the laws, then he can fix that. If they don't have access to a computer to type that judgment, he can fix that. But is it that somebody else is pulling the strings? Is it that they need to keep hush to maintain their cushy positions, or is in collusion with somebody else? Because they all know each other. They all run in the same circle. Let's end this boys' club. The Jamaican people need to demand that this hearing by their servant, regardless of Chief Justice Yarnay, which is a throwback to colonialism anyway, he needs to do his job. He needs to respect his position given by the people. And that's all we ask. Acknowledge our letter, acknowledge our email, respond with time-sensitive information as to how you will treat with a most important legal matter in this country. This isn't some play thing. This isn't child maintenance, even though that is still a serious thing. But this is about the well-being of the people. This is about the respect for justice. And you have shamed them. Come on, do your job. We pay you to do that job. And we demand to hear exactly what the delay is or when the ruling will come out. If not, the best thing is to have the ruling as soon as practicable, before the end of the year. Stop monkeying around. The jig is up. We know what you're up to. Over to you, Mr. President.
Well, clear to the Prime Minister. I can just imagine the Prime Minister being able to take up the phone and call the Chief Justice and say, Chief Justice, well, go on, man, do this now, whatever it is. And I can just imagine the Chief Justice waking up to that old lady's story in the paper and saw that she has been waiting for 14 years. And then he was able to the next day come out and say, listen, I'm going to address this right away. I just saw where the Observer carried an article on us, thanks to the press release that you put out, where they highlighted the matter. And I'm sure the Chief Justice has seen that in the paper and could easily have taken up the phone and called the Observer and say, I'm dealing with it right now. But he's remained silent. Why? Is it that the Prime Minister and company have decided that it's better for no verdict to come before the next general election? So just like how they waited out the people, you might recall in 2021, 2022, and 2023, when they should have called the local government election, the Prime Minister saw it fit to delay calling those elections for a more opportune time. Why? Because at that time, the UIC was far more visible because of this infringement on our rights. The UIC was far more visible, far more popular, far more being talked about. The media couldn't escape us because this was a major issue, and we were in the middle of it as the only movement standing up fully for the Jamaican people. And so the Prime Minister delayed calling election. And you might recall, Mr. Wright, speaking with our executive and others, I pointed out why he was delaying these elections. That his goal was for the UIC to become less visible and to hope that they can plant internal people to do damage to the UIC's credibility. And they're hoping that by the time they called an election, then the UIC would be no longer that strong in the eyes of the people. And they succeeded in doing that, as I anticipated and predicted. And here they're trying again to do exactly what I had predicted, that they would not want to bring a verdict to the Jamaican people prior to the election. So the question is now whether or not we, the people, are going to allow them to do this. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? How long will they allow them to silence those they think are getting in the way of their agenda? Somebody noted earlier on that we're missing billions of dollars unaccounted for from a number of our ministries. And that's just by the wayside. We see where the Prime Minister is tying the NIDS to the gimmick give back that they're trying to use to bribe the people. All kinds of things are happening in this country, but they're getting away with it because they have a complicit opposition who is no opposition at all, but the other side of the same coin. And the question before us is, how long shall we, the people, sit by and allow this? We don't have to do it. We as a people can actually rise up, but we have to start taking responsibility. We don't have to wait and hope for somebody else to do it. We can do it because nobody else is going to do what must be done for us. We, the people, have to do it. And the time is now to rise up and take control. Just imagine if we decide that we demand that the Chief Justice brings a verdict. We demand that the justice system stands up and regard us and do what is required in the very law that they have. Then they'll have to do it. But of course, if we're silent, if we're quiet, then of course they'll continue to do it, not just to me, but to anyone else who tries to buck the system.
Thank you, Mr. President, and well said. Crystal G is asking, how do we remove the Chief Justice? Under the current system, the Chief Justice can't be removed by the people. and that's why he's not responsive to the people and not accountable to the people. He will continue to report to his political cronies who he enables their illegality, because the Chief Justice can, on the virtue of the bench that he holds, ask for the investigation into certain activities that is in the public domain and even issue arrest warrants for politicians. Yes, he can. Of course, the DPP is there as another level of protection to say we'll vacate this prosecution. But still, it is possible and doable. Now, let's focus on what we can do here and now. Our petition, we need 500 signatures to take it to the Chief Justice's office. We're well on our way. So everybody here watching, if you have not signed as yet, please go ahead and sign. We'll make sure we pass that link around so you can have it. Okay? And of course, if you're in our WhatsApp group, you would have seen it. It continues to be posted there. If you're on Facebook, in any of our groups, you will see it there. The link, just click and go ahead and fill that out. You don't have to donate. Just go ahead and share instead, which is right below the donate tab. And share that with other contacts, with other friends, other like-minded persons, other persons who you know want justice. Not just for themselves, but for everyone. And when you go ahead and share that, then you would have completed the signing. Okay? When we get to that 500 signatures, we'll be then going on the road, taking our petition to one of the major towns, if not more, and asking persons to sign up to get justice for Joseph Patterson. And of course, when we have those signatures that we want, we're aiming for as much as we can, but 10,000 is a lovely figure. And I think we have, the Jamaican people can do that. Okay? We're going to take it to the Chief Justice's office, have that delivered to him with a lovely letter from the spokesperson on justice, noting that our president has been wronged and the Jamaican people have been wronged, and we're admonishing him and his office for those actions, and ask that he does the right, the noble thing, the just thing, and have his subordinates put in their ruling in this matter. So go ahead, pop over to our Facebook page and sign that petition, share it with your friends and relatives. Now, I don't think we have enough time for a phone call, Mr. President.
But I haven't seen any calls come in, so I guess your presentation has been very fulsome, and persons get the message. People understand what you're talking about. I do want to say, though, that as much as I am the focus of this issue, I want us to understand that it's not just about me. It's really about we. Because if they get away with this, with me, my grandmother would say, today for me, tomorrow for you. You ever hear that?
Yes.
And Mr. Wright says, we stick goat, stick sheep. The bottom line is this, or is it hog? The bottom line is this. What they're doing to me, they will do to anyone who tries to go up against the system. This is our chance to win. And the UIC message has always been the same. It's a very, very simple message. And what is this? Are we getting a call here? We're getting a call coming in.
All right, go ahead and cue that up, Mr. President. And let me just respond to Joy B. Let me just go ahead and respond to Joy B and say, Joy B, let's have a conversation about that. My contact details are out there. You can reach me on Facebook and on WhatsApp. Reach out directly and let me have a conversation with you.
Hold on a second.
Make sure that you understand the facts of the situation.
You said it, but I thought I missed. You said go to Facebook.
So the petition, Mr. Wright, how can they sign the petition? Can you drop that in the comment section, Mr. Wright? So the link, drop the link here so Miss Debbie can get it.
Sure. Be happy to do that.
Where are you, Miss Debbie? Are you on YouTube or Facebook?
Well, I'm on YouTube.
Perfect, no problem.
I'm watching the live now, but I'm sure that I missed what he said.
Yeah, so he's going to drop it right now in the comment box. So you'll see it in the comment box. You can click on it. Have you dropped it there yet, Mr. Wright? I haven't seen it.
No, I'm just copying the link right now.
All right.
And let's put it in the comment section.
It's the same petition, but I'm not seeing it. So the link to go, yes.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to get it for you, and you'll be able to do it.
It's said that it's saying that I cannot comment. So what I'm going to do, put it in the private chat.
You cannot comment. Yes, and I will pass it over there.
Okay, then.
All right. So stay tuned. Thank you so much, Miss Debbie. All the best.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go.
All right, thank you, Ms. Debbie. And again, when you click on the link, it will take you to the sign up page where you fill in your name, first and last, email address, and then when you click on that, you take you to another page where we'll say chip in, but you're not going to chip in. Directly below that, it says share instead. You're going to click on that, and it's going to ask you to share on WhatsApp or Facebook or X, I think. You choose one, and you go ahead and share that with whomever you want, whether on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or wherever, or WhatsApp. And once you have done that, it will tell you that you have completed the signing. And while you're signing, you'll see at the top 1, 2, 3. Right? Until all 3 steps are completed, and in green, you would not have completed it. All right, so share is the last step. But it's pretty easy. So go ahead for me. All right. All right, thank you, Mr. President. That was very fulsome. Mr. Sutherland, it was great seeing you electronically. Hope to see you in person. Do enjoy your time with the president. I know he's a great entertainer. I've sat by his side many a times. He tells good story. Mr. Patterson keeps big check so he doesn't get too wild with his stories. Okay.
Yes.
But yes.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Mr. Wright. Whatsoever, none whatsoever. But it's always a pleasure to be on, and I look forward to many more lives on some more uplifting topics. This one is quite distressing and depressing, but I'm really hoping that we, the members, and we, the supporters, and we, the people of Jamaica, will use this opportunity to say never again. What happened to us between 2020 and 2022 must never happen again. We came this close to having a government inject all of our people against their will with practically no serious opposition. And the UIC stood in the gap for the people of Jamaica. Now they're trying to make sure that they sacrifice your leader in the hope that when they come again the next time, nobody will stand up because they're afraid of what them do to Mr. Patterson. I don't want them to do that to me. And that's how they have kept us in slavery for so many years. They use poverty, they use fear tactics, and they use ignorance to keep us in slavery. They kept us dunce, and they made us even fully dunce by the time we got so-called independence. And that's why we end up with leaders like the ones we did, who were able to lead us down this path. Let us understand now and rise up now and say enough is enough. We're not going to allow them to get away with this, because if they do, it may be another 80 years before we find ourselves again trying to extricate ourselves. Don't take this UIC thing for granted. Don't allow your minds to be twisted and think, oh, it's okay, something else will come. We have now had 66, the UIC is the 67th third party of Jamaica. Did you know that? Yes. The 67th. They have all failed before. And I know they have taught us to say, oh, third parties can't win. And they have caused us to become settled in the mold they want us to be settled in. And what is that mold? The mold where local private interest and global elitist interest gets to own and control our government and are able to strip us of our rights as they see fit. The next time they have another serious matter, whatever that is, be it a pandemic or something else, you may find that during that next iteration, not one single solitary Jamaican will stand up against what they're doing. And that's what they want. They want us to give up. They want us to give in. They want us to be oppressed and suppressed. And they'll send all manner of evil against you. The most important of which, they will send infiltrators into your camp to tear you down. And when that doesn't work, they will turn the police on you. And then they will accelerate the weaponization of the justice system and use those things to crush out any dissent. They have done it before to Marcus Garvey. They did it brutally to Paul Bogle and to George William Gordon. They executed Sam Sharp, and they managed to emasculate Nanny by giving her a small piece of land so that they could contain the rebellious nature of our people and control the rest of us. We must not allow them to win again. This arguably may be our final chance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well said. I won't delay any further on that. I'll ask Joey B. Reach out to me on Facebook. Reach out at my other contact details that are available. Reach out in the group chat if you're in the group chat. Let me thank everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you again, Mr. Sutherland. Thank you, Mr. President. Let's just continue the fight. Sign that petition.
Yeah, can we get a final word from Mr. Sorry, when you finish, a final word from our senior?
Definitely. Respect is due.
One of the things I'd love.
But just before you go, Mr. Sutherland, let me just finish this point. So yes. Let me just ask persons. I just posted the link in the chat. If you didn't go through, the president will post it for me because I see something like it failed. So let me go ahead and ask you to sign, share, and of course, support that petition. Let's get it to 500 signatures, then get it to the streets, then get it to the Chief Justice. And we don't have much time. Okay? We need to do this before January. So asking everyone to support. I see people all over social media or YouTube channel, etc., saying this is angering. Yes, that righteous anger from the injustice, let's channel that in a positive way for a better Jamaica. Mr. Sutherland, you have the final word.
Yes. One of the things I'd love my fellow Jamaicans, brothers and sisters, to realize and to understand that we have the power, and the power is in your finger. You should not blame yourself for a bad government if you have your finger. Because when you go to the polling booth, it should be UIC, because you've experienced all the difficulties, all the trials and tribulation of suffering, and it doesn't have to be anymore. I am here today. I am not seeking a political position. I'm seeking to see Mr. Patterson and to congratulate him for the attempt he has made, because if you're thinking of money, his ability, his education is much more than the money he can make politically. So please get out there, speak for him, act for him, not in a way of violence, in a way of love and unity. Give him the chance. He respects you, he's respectful, he shows you all the things we need for a better Jamaica. You cannot build a country and the inhabitants cannot afford it. Then what you're doing, you're building the country for the wealthy who are not Jamaicans. Please open your eyes and your heart and do what is best for you. This is putting the UIC to be your leader. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Sutherland. Let me ask our technician in the background to grab that link from the private chat. He's failing for me, and post it in the group before we end, in the general section before we end. So
yeah, the one you placed in the private chat, for some reason it did not come over. It seemed to have it was there, but it just disappeared. It didn't stay. So I'm not sure why. If you want to try again, yeah, I'm not sure why you're not able to place it in the comment section, but all right, here it is. I see it here. I don't know if Mr. O'Shane can move that to the public space, but I do see it now. Yes, I see it being posted there now. So yeah, there it is. There it is. Wonderful. All right.
That's it. So follow that link, and as I said, you do not have to donate. As a matter of fact, and on this platform, when I ask you to donate, if you want to donate to the UIC, go to our donation portal. We'd love your contribution, whether to the legal fund or you just want to donate to the UIC for operational purposes. We remember, we're not funded by the PSOJ oligarchs. As a matter of fact, we see where the PSOJ, and I have this message for the PSOJ, as a matter of fact, and I'll deliver it now. The UIC is not anti-PSOJ. The UIC is not anti-donation. The UIC is anti-control. The UIC believes that the government should be truly representative of the people and should be controlled by the people, not by a connected or selected few. Now, You have often cried for the colonial parties to behave in a manner more befitting, without success, but yet you continue to fund them even though you claim to love and support democracy. That is the hypocrisy of your statement. And if you want to end that and be truly seen by the Jamaican people to be a business with a social conscience that is larger than life, then support all initiatives for the betterment of the people. Support the UIC and know that you will not have control of our party, but rather support the growth of true democracy, true freedom. That's my message for them. Mr. President, I've kept you away from your business long enough. Thank you for choosing to come on. I appreciate you accepting my last minute offer. I know when I called you yesterday, you were busy and you took the time to be on with us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Wright. Thank you, Mr. Sutherland, for coming in. And thanks to all of you on the live for joining us. Until next time, have a good night. And remember, one Jamaica, stronger together. Take
Good
care.
night.
Good night.
Good night.